On the morning of August 25th, 1835, New York City awakened to the most extraordinary news in human history. The New York Sun newspaper proclaimed that life had been discovered on the moon, not just simple plants, but an entire world of incredible creatures and sapphire temples. For 6 magical days, America believed every word. The newspaper claimed these miraculous discoveries came from Sir John Herschel, the world's most famous astronomer, who was conducting observations in South Africa. Using a revolutionary new telescope of unprecedented power, he could see the moon's surface as clearly as if he stood upon it himself. The technical details dazzled readers. A telescope lens 24 feet across, weighing nearly 15,000 pounds, with a hydro-oxygen microscope that could magnify objects 42,000 times. In that age of steam engines and industrial marvels, anything seemed possible. Science was performing miracles daily. The true author was Richard Adams Locke, a brilliant journalist hiding behind the fictional Dr. Andrew Grant. Locke intended his story as satire, mocking the wild astronomical speculations of the era. But he had crafted his deception too perfectly. Instead of laughing, New York believed. The first day's article described the lunar landscape: vast forests of unknown vegetation, beaches of brilliant white sand, and bodies of water reflecting Earth's light. The moon had an atmosphere. It could support life. Readers were entranced by this new world, so close yet so mysterious. Day 2 brought the animals, and New York went wild with excitement. The Sun described herds of miniature lunar bison, with fleshy hoods over their eyes, protecting them from extreme light. Most remarkably, there were blue unicorns with silver horns and bearded chins grazing in lunar meadows. Even more astounding were the bipedal beavers. These remarkable creatures walked upright, carried their young in their arms, and lived in carefully constructed huts. They appeared to use fire and tools, suggesting intelligence approaching the rational mind. Scientists were beside themselves with wonder. The newspaper's circulation exploded from 8,000 to over 19,000 copies in just 2 days, making the Sun the best-selling daily newspaper in the world. Crowds gathered at the newspaper offices, desperate for each new edition. The entire city buzzed with lunar fever. Thursday's edition painted a world of wonders. Valleys filled with blood-red flowers the size of trees, crystal formations creating permanent rainbows, and fruits like giant melons hanging from impossible trees. Each detail was more marvelous than the last, yet described with scientific precision. Then came Friday, August 28th, the day that would live in history. The Sun revealed the discovery of intelligent life, the Vespertilio homo, or man-bats. These creatures stood 4 feet tall, covered in copper-colored hair, with faces disturbingly similar to orangutans, but showing unmistakable intelligence. The man-bats possessed wings spanning 14 feet, semi-transparent like earth bats, but infinitely more beautiful. They flew with extraordinary grace, sometimes in formation like birds, sometimes in elaborate aerial dances that suggested joy and play. They were observed eating yellow gourds and bathing in lunar streams. Most remarkably, the man-bats appeared to live in perfect harmony. They had no weapons, no fortifications, no signs of conflict. They communicated through elaborate gestures and musical vocalizations. Here was an intelligent species that had achieved what humanity could not, a society without war. Saturday's revelation stunned even those who had accepted everything before. A temple of the moon, built entirely from polished sapphire, standing 340 feet high with a roof of burnished gold. The man-bats conducted elaborate ceremonies there, worshipping Earth as it hung in their sky. New York's churches erupted in theological debate. If God created intelligent life on the moon, what did this mean for Christianity? One minister began collecting funds to send Bibles to the moon. Another declared it proof of God's infinite creativity. The implications were staggering. The scientific community was divided. Some professors at Yale and Harvard initially endorsed the discoveries, not wanting to appear behind the times. Museums rushed to create lunar exhibits. P.T. Barnum even claimed to have acquired an actual man-bat specimen for display. Edgar Allan Poe was furious. He had just published his own moon story as obvious fiction, and now it looked derivative compared to this news. Telescope sales skyrocketed as citizens stayed up all night, desperately searching the moon for glimpses of temples and creatures. On Monday, the 6th day, disaster struck. The sun announced that the telescope had been left pointing at the moon during daylight, and concentrated sunlight had burned a massive hole through the reflecting chamber. Observations must cease until repairs could be made. How convenient. The unraveling began when the New York Herald sent reporters to investigate. They discovered the Edinburgh Journal of Science had closed years ago. No Dr. Andrew Grant existed in any records. When journalists asked to see the original articles, they received only excuses and delays. By early September, the hoax was exposed. Richard Adams Locke eventually admitted authorship, claiming he'd intended it as satire of wild religious astronomical theories. But his private letters revealed the truth. He knew exactly what he was doing, saving his failing newspaper with sensational fiction. Sir John Herschel, when news finally reached him months later in South Africa, initially found it amusing. But as letters poured in from Americans asking for more details about the man-bats and offering to fund lunar expeditions, his laughter turned to exhausted frustration. Remarkably, the public wasn't truly angry about being fooled. One reader wrote, "The moon story was worth 10 cents even if it was a lie. For a week, I lived in a world where anything was possible." Another said, "You gave us unicorns when all we had was factory smoke." The Great Moon Hoax revealed essential truths about 1835 America. This was a nation transforming at lightning speed. Canals, railroads, telegraphs sprouting everywhere. If humans could reshape Earth so quickly, why couldn't there be miracles on the moon? Americans were primed to believe in the extraordinary. The hoax also birthed a new kind of journalism. The penny press had discovered that sensation sold better than sophistication. The Sun's success with fake news would influence American media for generations, establishing a template where facts became optional if the story was good enough. Yet there's something beautifully human about those 6 days in August 1835. For one shining week, humanity wasn't alone in the universe. There were others out there. Peaceful, intelligent beings who had built a society without war, who danced in earthlight and worshipped in sapphire temples. Today we know the moon is airless rock where nothing has ever lived. Our astronauts have walked its dusty surface, finding no unicorns, no temples, no man-bats. But on clear nights, when the full moon rises over America, some part of us still wants to believe in the wonders that captivated New York in 1835. The Great Moon Hoax was fake news, yes, but it was also something more precious. It was hope disguised as journalism, wonder masquerading as science, the human heart refusing to accept that we are alone.